Medieval 2 Total War released on the 10th of November 2006. Many Total War fans look back fondly on this game as their favourite in the Total War series. Over the years, Medieval 2, alongside with Rome Total War, have achieved cult classic status and are considered the peak of the historical Total War franchise. I, on the other hand, was only 3 years old at the time of release, and I had no idea what Total War was for more than a decade after this game's release. I only purchased this game in 2018, therefore my impression of this game is not affected by the rose-tinted glasses of nostalgia. This is the 4th Total War game that I have played. My first foray into the Total War franchise came when I picked up Rome 2 during a Steam sale, and since then I have played most of the Total War games. Yet Medieval 2 has become my favourite. I was surprised to see that I was firing up Medieval 2 more often than any other game. The game is not flashy or graphically impressive as the Total War Warhammer games, but it doesn't need to be. The game starts right after the Battle of Manzikert, when the Seljuk Turks defeated the Byzantine Empire and flooded into Anatolia. It is also only a decade after the Norman conquest of England. This leads to an action-filled start. For me, the most important aspect of a game is the world building. Granted, Medieval 2 has an easier job of this than most other games. Being a European, I know a great deal about the history of the medieval nations, their rise from obscurity, their dramatic highs, and their inevitable decline. This allows for a roleplay aspect to this game. I need to be able to immerse myself in the world in order to be able to properly enjoy it. For example, when I play as Spain, I try to complete the Reconquista. When I play as Poland, I am always friendly with the Hungarians, and vice versa. When I play as Byzantium, first I try to consolidate the empire and play defensively to recover from the aftermath of the tragedy of the Battle of Manzikert, before trying to recover the lands lost and restore the Eastern Roman Empire. When I play as the English, I simply hate the French. The map of Western Europe in Medieval 2 Total War is great. Most major settlements are featured, and the distance between them is close enough. But Eastern Europe, on the other hand, is very poorly filled. Around the start date of the game, the Kievan Rus, which covered most of the east, was undergoing massive division and civil wars. Yet its cities were still large, and more should have been featured in the game. As otherwise the east is hollow, and it can take 4 to 5 turns to get between settlements, or even more. A great aspect of the campaign is the freedom of the development of the settlements. The ability to adjust the tax level between 4 different settings. If I want my settlement to grow quickly, I can reduce taxes to the minimum, and if I am developing a lot of towns, I can adjust the tax rate individually in order to balance out the development temporarily without making my people hate me universally. If I want to fortify an area, I can convert the town into a fortress, and later convert a fortress into a town if I have expanded past an area and the town is no longer a border province. The fact that development is limited by population and any city is capable of massive growth is great, and in my opinion much better than the newer games, where settlements are limited to 4 buildings for the most part, except for the capital cities in the province. This allows for playing tall to be a rewarding method. If only there was a vassal mechanic in the game in the vein of Europa Universalis 4. That would be fantastic.
The Holy Bible may preach peace,
I am a big fan
when
of
it
the
is
guild
Christendom
mechanic.
itself that is threatened.
when a town achieves certain thresholds, you would gain the option to construct a guild, be it the Thieves Guild, Merchant Guild, or the Teutonic Knights Guild, with each giving unique bonuses to the town.
It is time for the armies of Christendom to put aside their differences and unite under one banner, the sign of the cross.
The need for Catholic nations to placate the Pope leads to very interesting situations. Failure to do so will lead to excommunication. Upon the death of a pope, countries with cardinals are able to vote for his successor. But if you don't vote for the eventual winner, the pope will remember this and like you less. In my last game as the Holy Roman Empire, the pope's opinion of me was getting quite low. So I sent my diplomat to give the pope a gift of 10,000 gold. The pope was happy and I thought that that was that. However, the pope decided to die before the next turn, and I was immediately excommunicated by the new pope. Occasionally the pope called for crusades to conquer some Muslim-held city. Joining a crusade allows you to hire some very interesting special troops that are only available for crusading armies. You have cheaper upkeep costs and add some unique abilities. This gives fighting in the Middle East a unique flavour compared to the rest of the world, and a greater sense of purpose for conquest. However, holding on to conquered cities in the Middle East is no easy feat, as the locals would not like you at all. In my last game, I could not pacify the locals of Antioch. Whenever I would try to build buildings, they would riot and destroy it. With riots occurring faster than I was able to replenish my troops, I was forced to retreat back home when my mainland was attacked by France.
Walls have fallen. Our men must think
Army recruitment in Medieval 2 is my favourite of any Total War game. Each unit has a limited pool to recruit from. This requires you to fill most of your army with crappy units, such as town militia, even up to 100 turns into the game. This leads to greater variety in battle, with more unique units, and requires more tactical gameplay, as if you lose most of your knights and elite infantry in a reckless battle, they are gone for good. They would not magically replenish like in the newer games, and you would have to return to where you recruited them in order to replenish their numbers. Also, there is no innate garrison in the city, which makes battles much more decisive. Defeating an army meant that you had a great opportunity to take a large amount of land before the enemy could muster a new army. This is how it should be in every game. It requires the player to make decisions as to what settlements require a larger defensive force, while which could do without, allowing you to focus more on border provinces, leaving the interior provinces less defended due to their relative safety. Technological progression is fantastically reflected. Back in the medieval period, university scientists and engineers were very rare. Therefore, technological progress is tied to the population of a settlement. Which does make sense, as a small village would not be able to support the costs of, for example, a siege works. A unit of late game dismounted feudal knights could defeat 5 units of basic spear militia. However, the units are still balanced by their counters, as on an open plain they can be massacred by a single unit of crossbowmen due to their slow speed, not to mention their great cost. And even heavy cavalry are still quite weak against even basic spearmen. The siege battles are by far my favourite of the series. You can send a spy into a town to try to open the gates for your main army when they storm the settlement. If this fails, the player requires actual siege equipment to destroy the gates. You can't just hit a reinforced gate with a spear like in the recent games. Also, the multi-layered nature of the bigger towns, where defenders could retreat back to the keep, behind a second layer of defensive walls is fantastically immersive. Also, you could even try to send a diplomat into an enemy town to try to bribe the garrison to defect to your side, to allow you to take a city without even fighting a battle. Although this is difficult to accomplish, and it's much easier to do so if public order in the town is low.
Oh, our familiar foes. But to discount the menaces that lurk beyond the known world is to risk a rude awakening that can become a nightmare.
The plentiful amount of upgrades that the town can construct.
Invasion.
This battle is unique, be it through reinforced gates, stronger walls, or ballista towers. In my opinion, the game's graphics still hold up. The cities still look fantastic, as do some battle landscapes. The only thing that has aged is the textures, but they are by no means crucial to the enjoyment of a game. The battle AI of Medieval 2 Total War is average. It does the job most of the time. It prioritizes high value targets fairly well. However, it is not well coordinated. AI cavalry tends to not flank around, and the units don't take advantage of the high ground very well. Compared to Shogun 2, for example, the AI does not hold up. Medieval 2 can be summarized as a medium-sized game that is good in all of its aspects, but spectacular in none. A jack of all trades, you could say. While Shogun 2 has fantastic AI, but in my opinion a lackluster campaign scope. While Empire Total War had my favourite campaign mechanics, but the least well developed battles. That is a discussion for another day. I think that this is why Medieval 2 is so well received. There is nothing about it that is overly annoying, that could sour its best qualities, which allows for a very enjoyable time in the game.